So, as I said, my name's Hen, work at CD Baby. CD Baby was the first DIY distribution option to independent artists back in 1999 when it was first launched or formed. Back in those days, you had to go through a major label or an independent record label of a certain size to be able to get your record into the shop. Our founder was part of a small punk scene in Portland, Oregon, and thought I want to get my albums out as well. Therefore, we started CD Baby. We were then the first digital distribution option, or aggregation option that made a deal with iTunes to allow independent artists to get their music onto iTunes. And then since then, we've just grown and grown and grown. I think we've released more independent music than anybody else. So we've released a catalogue of about 9 million tracks across about 750,000 artists, covering the vast majority of countries in the world. So yeah, I was invited here today, or my colleague was invited here today to go and talk about independence in the music industry, or independence in 2020, but also digital distribution, how to promote your music, how to, what is the flow, what's the, which areas within the kind of release flow do you need to think about in 2020 that might be different from 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Maybe? So first off, I kind of wanted to cover the area of independence in 2020, because I think there's been this idea for such a long time that you have to go through a record label. You have to do certain things to be able to get your music out into the world for fans, to build a fan base, to be able to, market yourself in France or Kazakhstan or Australia or wherever it is that you want to be. But, those numbers are shifting so heavily and have been for a while now. So in 2018, just to give you some boring facts and figures, in 2018, the global recorded music industry revenue totaled about $19 billion, which is up 9% from the year before. Our space, the kind of DIY space, increased by 35% year on year in comparison, so we're growing at a much, much faster rate than the rest of the industry, than the major record labels are. They kind of hit a bit of a stagnant point in comparison to what we have. On a global basis, independent music, that's independent record labels, as well as self-releasing artists, represents about 40% market share, which is, yay! Fantastic.
Sorry.
Yeah, so about 40% market share, which means that three companies, Sony, Universal, and Warner, represent the other 60%. But as you can see, the US, Japan, UK, Germany, and France are the 5 top music markets in the world, and still you see a really high percentage of independent market share. So each of these percentages represent the indie share. So you see Japan, for instance, 63% of all the music revenues coming in that country, independent music. US, really, really high again, which is very, very positive. So there's definitely an opportunity to be an independent artist in 2020 without having to rely on traditional routes.
Can I just ask, why was that Japanese so high compared to us?
Because a lot of the so Universal, Warner, and Sony. Sony is a Japanese company, but the other two are not. And Japan are very good at protecting their own cultural identity and protecting their own local labels, etc. Therefore, that they're not rolled into that major label market share.
But is that on music for, money for the big companies rather than independent people?
No, so the total recorded music revenue that come in Japan, physical music sales, digital music sales, etc., 63% of it is independent owned.
Yeah.
You find that with China and India as well. It's the same in Southeast Asia. Is that as used as a cultural thing of protecting your own music?
South Korea is close to 90%. It's incredible. The UK is unfortunately a bit lower, but there's been a historical trend of having those big companies here, and those big companies have also acquired a lot of the really well established and prolific independent companies that were independent previously, BMI being an example, rolling that into their catalogue. So that's why you see those fluctuations.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. So in terms of getting your music out there, there's a million options, and I think, like, whenever I speak to artists, labels, managers, I keep saying to them, you need to think about what's right for you, because there is a million different options. I think the first thing you should do is go to the AIM website and download their report that they recently published called Distribution Revolution. That it's not biased towards any companies. It doesn't even really link a lot of points to specific companies. It gives you an overview of the important things that you need to think about, and lets you think about what is important to you. For instance, fee structures, percentages and advances. You have such a big sliding scale in the distribution world, or in the independent distribution world, whereby some companies offer you 100% of your royalties and you pay a small fee, but you won't talk to anybody ever, up to companies that charge you 30 or 40% of your income, but they will be hand-holding you. Some companies like to charge annual fees, but sometimes if you receive an email and you forget to renew your annual fee, your music gets taken down. Some companies offer advances. You need to think about, is that actually important to me? Do I need an influx of cash to be able to pay for marketing campaigns or creating a music video or whatever else it is that you think you need money for? But think about that, because that, with an advance comes obviously a negative. It's a loan, right? So that means that you're giving up your rights for a certain period of time. Some distribution companies allow you to retain 100% of your rights, which we do. We don't want to own your rights. We want to help you take your music and get it out there, but we don't want to have any ownership over it because that's yours. In terms of payments, how often do you actually want to get paid? Some companies pay on a quarterly basis. Some companies pay on a weekly basis. Again, it's just something for you to consider. Data, which is one of the kind of key talking points in the music industry and has been now for the last couple of years. Access to data, understanding your data, having that, does the distribution option have a good dashboard where you can clearly see where has my music been paid, how much am I getting paid per stream, per sale, which platforms are they using? And also, do they give you access to the data dashboards of the different streaming services? Because again, if you want it, you should be able to have access to that information and use it if you want. What are their relationships with DSPs? DSPs are digital service providers, so your Spotify, Apple Music, etc. These services, on their website, they publish lists of their preferred distribution partners. We've preferred partners with both because we work with them on a technical relationship whereby we build a lot of integrations for them, but you only get to that level by not messing up too much with them, effectively. Can you get a hold of anyone? This is such a key one for so many artists I speak to. We've opened the European office in the last year and a half, 2 years. And the majority of artists that come to me from other distribution services, one of their top complaints is, I can't speak to anybody. Again, for some people this is really important, so be able to have somebody to sense check something with, but other people it doesn't really matter. What are the added services that you're getting for your percentage or for your fee? What kind of marketing services are they offering you? What kind of tools are they offering you? Are they pitching your music to playlists across streaming services, but also to radio? What about YouTube and video monetization? Facebook, Instagram, your music is monetizable across those platforms now as well. So make sure that your distribution partner does that. Do they do publishing or do they do sync? We have a sync agency. I'll come back to it a little bit later, but I don't know how many distribution options do you have sync? And sync is where you get your music placed onto, you know, TV, film, games, etc. So do they have a really good established network of music supervisors? And yeah, publishing. A lot of independent artists, they leave a chunk of money on the table these days because again, it's that tradition, it's that kind of old school thinking of I can't get a publishing deal. But in the kind of the gap of publishing deals, there's a couple of new services that have popped up over the last few years doing publishing administration, whereby they take a small fee from you, but then they're not going to handhold you in the same way that a traditional publisher does, but they're still collecting that revenue source for you. So we normally say to bands that, or artists that, for every dollar that you're making, or for every pound that you're making, you're leaving about 25p on the table if you haven't got your publishing rights in order. So can your distribution partner help you with that? And then release structure and flow. Is it understandable? Is it easy for you to do? Is it a manual process, or do you just send files over to them? What would you prefer? So I want to kind of cover the kind of rough areas that I think you need to think about in terms of releasing your music and promoting your music in 2020. Very happy to go into any of these areas in way more detail over email or phone call or something like that, but we have half an hour, so that's kind of limits it a bit. Number one, we're in a singles era. I know that a lot of people like creating albums and want to release albums. Unfortunately, people in this day and age have very short attention spans. People pick something up and they forget about it really quite quickly, which, but by releasing singles, you have constantly something to talk about, constantly something to show for and drag people back in till you get to a point where you're big enough that an album is actually going to make an impact. Because if you really, as an unknown artist, if you've created a massive body of work, say 10 tracks, 20 tracks, and you release that in one go, it's probably going to take you quite a long time to build up that catalogue again so you have enough stuff to release. So you're going to have to keep marketing the same product effectively for a year and a half, which is really, really difficult in this day and age where, you know, like I was saying before, with the kind of streaming attention economy where people are going to playlists rather than listening to albums in full. Which I know it's not what everybody wants to hear, but unfortunately it's true. So yeah, momentum is everything. Have a plan. Try to release stuff on a regular basis so that your fans get to know you and can kind of build a certain expectation of when, you know, every 6 weeks, every 2 months, every 3 months, whatever it might be, but just kind of try to create a bit of a cohesive plan around it, and also make sure that you communicate that with your music industry partners, because I get so many artists that come to me and go, so okay, I want to release a track in 3 weeks, I want to do this, this, and this, and I'm like, cool, but you need to slow down. I get you're really excited and you've had this plan in your head for a while, but we, the rest of us, also need enough time to get everybody else excited about it, you know. I want to talk to my press friends, or my radio friends, or whoever it might be, and say, ooh, have you heard this, ooh, you know, and start building a little bit of a vibe around it, to have a plan. Release on all platforms. I also have a lot of artists that come to me and say, I want to release on Spotify only. Or I want to release on Bandcamp and Bandcamp only. Which, I think this is the most crucial point on this. Don't assume that you know where your fans are. Because you might have somebody who's got, you know, fans on Apple or Deezer or Tidal or whatever it might be that just haven't found you yet. Or that have, or that know who you are, but they're paying for a different streaming service, you know? So don't make assumptions. Make sure that you're download as well. When you go to digitally release your music, make sure that you set up pre-orders so that you can so that your fans have the ability to pre-order, get excited, start talking to each other about it. And make sure when you do release that you use things like smart links, for example, Linkfire, which when you promote your music across social media platforms, you sometimes see these links that have like the artist's name, and it's a really, really short link, but it drives you to a landing page that lists all the different streaming platforms. So again, you're not making assumptions that you know where your fans are. It just drags them to a central place and then they can pick their own service. Because if you post a link to Spotify and the person clicking on this link does not have Spotify, you potentially lost a stream. Launch a show.co campaign or something similar. This is one of our tools that we offer for free to our CD Baby artists, but that we make the majors pay for. So we're currently running a campaign with Noel Gallagher on this for a pre-save campaign. So again, this is like a super simple thing to set up. This is a landing page with album artwork or a photo of the band, etc., where it says pre-save our new album on Spotify. So you set this up, you push this across your socials for a couple of weeks, and this allows for you to so every time a fan clicks on that green button, they automatically follow you on Spotify, which is good for the algorithms and means that it's easier for you to get into playlists. Also, it increases your release day streams because when they pre-save your track, it automatically pops up in their release radar, which is it's a playlist that's tailored for each individual. So the musicians that you follow, when it's there, when they have something released, it pops up in your playlist. Also, tools like this, you can grow your email lists, which sounds like an archaic thing, but actually, I'll come back to that as well. Email list is a fantastic way to communicate with your fans. Ad builders, if you want to put audio ads on places like Spotify or places banner ads on music websites. Working better with DSPs and playlists is an important area of distribution. That's also one of the main topics of conversation with artists today is how do I get on playlists? Again, make sure you need to claim your Spotify and your Apple profile, and you need to tailor them. You need to make sure that you have artwork there, a little bit of a bio, because you need to make things interesting for an artist, for a potential fan or an existing fan, right? Let them get to know you a little bit in a day and age where everybody is so disconnected from each other. This is an opportunity for you to give a little piece of yourself and tell the world who you are, and do it through imagery and text, you know. It also allows you to access your streaming analytics, so you'll be able to see that if you have a lot of streams in Birmingham or Cardiff or Liverpool or wherever it might be, you can sit down, you can look at this and go, cool, I've never actually been to any of these cities, but I've got fans here. Why don't I schedule a tour? So then when you contact booking agents, for instance, or venues, you can say, actually, I have a huge concentration of fans in Liverpool, Newcastle, or whatever. I believe I can bring this many people to a show, and that's actually a data metric that they can look at and go, yeah, okay, cool. Also, through these back-end systems, you can pitch your music to playlists, which is really important that you do yourself as well. We pitch for our priority artists, but if the artists themselves haven't pitched, or the managers or labels or whoever haven't pitched through Spotify for Artists, for instance, the Spotify editorial team go, who do you think you are that you can't even bother pitching? So you're reducing your chances so much straight away of getting your songs featured on playlists. And yeah, make sure that you do it at least 1 week out. That's the cut-off point, so they can plan ahead social media. I guess most artists these days that are that want to promote themselves do it through at least one social media channel. I know a lot of artists that they don't want to do all of them, which is fine. I think if you, I mean, you guys are the social media experts here, but I think for a lot of artists, it really works if they focus on one or two, and they do that really well rather than cool. So here are a couple of examples. You're going to do ads, Facebook. You're going to do photography and design, Instagram. You're going to do videos, YouTube. Video diaries, etc. From tour, backstage, in the studio. Are you funny? Like short form funny? Go on Twitter. But also make sure that the content that you're putting up is high quality. You don't want to see grainy photos and things like that. Just make sure everything is high quality. This is another very crucial area. I think having a website, again, it sounds a little bit old school, but festivals, magazines, whoever it might be, they want to see that you have a website because that just adds another level of professionalism to what you're doing. It doesn't have to be a very big website, it doesn't have to have a lot of different areas, but there needs to be one. And also, it's an opportunity for you to capture your fans' email addresses because you don't own the information on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Those sites could technically shut down tomorrow, like MySpace did back in the day. Your email, your website is your website, and you get.
I just ask with something like Reverb Nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What Bandcamp is that different?
Bandcamp is like a direct-to-fan site where you sell your products, so merch or music.
So that's not so much a website as such?
No. I mean, I would definitely recommend that you have a Bandcamp site because I think you earn a lot of, the margins are really high on Bandcamp, and they're amazing guys, very supportive of independent music. But there's a lot of like tools that help you set up like a one-page landing page that just has a picture and just has your domain name. Yeah. And a couple of small links that can drag you to YouTube or Facebook or whatever it might be.
Yeah, because that's a good thing I find about Reverb Nation. I've got a page and you can put all the links there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Link to your latest video and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be super complicated, or you don't need to hire somebody to do anything for you. But I think just having one is important. And you can also, like I was. Yes, you can capture email addresses, but you can also track visitors' activity. So you can see where are people, where are they coming from? The people that are looking at your website. What time of day are they looking at your website? Again, you might find some surprises that might not necessarily correspond with your streaming data that you're looking at from Spotify. So depending on how interested in diving into your own data you are, you can go pretty far down. Having a press release or a one sheet is important as well when you're contacting magazines and online blogs, if you're looking for reviews, features, whatever it might be. Again, it doesn't have to be anything complicated, but make sure you have a good quality image on there that can actually be put onto your website. It needs to be fairly high. Make sure it has some links to your music, a short little story about who you are, what you do. Don't attach it to your email, because if you're a magazine and you open up an attachment that has a virus, you can that can potentially crash their entire system, so they don't want to see that. So if you can add it as a link to them, to like a Google Drive, for instance, something like that, there's a much higher chance of people opening. Find contacts, whether it might be radio or whoever it is that you're looking for booking agents or venues or whatever it is around the country. Find them. Social media is a really good way of finding people, but also the Unsigned Guide and Submit Hub. You pay a small fee to the Unsigned Guide. I think it's like a coffee or something. And then you have all that information that you can utilise for ages. do a PR campaign. Make sure that you're pushing your releases. Make sure that you're contacting third-party playlists. And these are playlists that are not curated by the streaming services themselves. It's people, private individuals or companies. Often these playlists are easier for new artists to get onto. And you can find contact details for them on platforms like Twitter. And just write to them and send a link to your track and say, hey, I've got this coming out and I think it would fit really well on your playlist, your jazz playlist or whatever it is, but make sure that you've done your research. BBC introducing local radio, super, super crucial.
How do you find the playlist then?
How do you find the playlist?
Yeah.
Okay, so say you're a singer-songwriter. I would literally sit on my laptop and I'd search for singer-songwriter in Spotify, and then the top 10 are probably going to be editorial ones, and then you can look down below that, and then you'll find loads of singer-songwriter playlists, or any other word that you can kind of associate with your type of music. Search for that, see what you can find. Because often it is super enthusiastic fans that like update fairly regularly, but they're not getting paid for it or anything. They're not making any money off it. They just do it for the love of it. But then when it comes to pitching to Spotify or whoever else at a later point, you can say, I was featured on this playlist and this playlist and this playlist, and they go, you're interesting. Yeah.
So just Google playlist.
Well, go to your streaming platform. If you have Spotify, if that's your one of choice, go for that one and see what you can find. Also, often there's a lot of companies like a Red Bull or someone. They curate playlists, and for certain genres of music, your one, for instance, getting brand familiarity and getting brands on board with what you're doing can be really, really beneficial to your career.
Right, okay. What was that one called you said?
Like, I just use as an example Red Bull. The Red Bull is more kind of rock and indie, but there'll be other brands within your space.
Right.
The kind of hip hop.
Yeah.
That will be shoe brands, clothing brands. Videos. Videos is a really good way of communicating to your fans, to show them a little piece of who you are. It's all encapsulating, right? And YouTube accounts for nearly 50% of music streaming worldwide. It's slightly lower here in the UK, but when you go to countries like India, or you go across the African continent, or even Eastern Europe, where in some of those countries your traditional streaming service is not available, everybody uses YouTube constantly, even if they're sat in cars or wherever. So make sure that you produce stuff that you can put onto YouTube, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be music videos. Like I mentioned before, having behind-the-scenes footage, having a video diary, just make sure that it's natural. I think that's the key thing with everything here, right? Just make sure it's authentic and coming from the heart, not just something that you're doing because you think you have to. Fans can smell that from a mile away. But in terms of music videos, it doesn't have to cost you a fortune anymore. There's a lot of people that are making music videos on mobile phones these days. So yeah, create videos and make sure that you upload them, and make sure that you organise your YouTube channel, that you have up-to-date information there, that your videos are in the correct order, so that when somebody clicks into your YouTube channel, your most recent video is the one that appears there. And also when you reach out, a lot of press outlets these days will do single premieres, but they will ask you for the video, and that will read again. It's all like a snowball effect, right? So this helps then with DSP editors and algorithmic playlists, that you'd be able to say, I had a video premiere on Clash or Enemy or whatever it might be. Sync licensing opportunities. make sure that your music is available, make sure that your sync agency knows who you are, the kind of music that you're producing. So we do have a sync agency or a sync department within CD Baby. They're based in the US. But we are looking to launch our European counterpart in 2020, towards the end of 2020. But again, because we've released more independent music than anybody else, we have such a wide catalogue of content that when music supervisors come to us and they say, I want some really weird cowboy / alien rock music from the 50s, we go, yeah, cool, we've got that. So we get a lot of music supervisors coming to us. You know, a lot of the supervisors don't necessarily just want the big hits because the big hits are really, really expensive. And they want something a bit different. So yeah, we've had recent things. We had 2 on the last season of Stranger Things. In the Shadows, which is a BBC America production, and then we've had one with Volkswagen, and I think that was all kind of the second or the last quarter of last year. And yeah, release day is not the end of it. Like I was saying before about, you know, the album and then you're having to keep push. Release date is day 1. You need to keep pushing, you need to keep marketing your content, you need to think about what the next 6 months look like, what's your plan, does everybody else around you know what the plan is? Do you have content, do you have a schedule for your social media, do you have when you're going to release your video and your next track, etc. Read. There's so many amazing resources online that can help you learn so much more about any field in the music industry. You said before you want to learn more about digital marketing. Music Ally. You go to Music Ally and read articles from there. They're the leading digital marketing agency in the UK. So they have a daily bulletin all about music industry news, but it's very focused on the kind of digital side of things.
Music
Ally.
Music on.
Music Ally.
Ally.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so 2 words.
Okay.
Series, Music Business Worldwide, if you want to just hear about news and updates. And like, there's so many different resources. AIM here in the UK is a good one for independent artists. Obviously, CD Baby, we have a blog and a podcast that's available to everybody. Don't have to be a CD Baby artist to get access to that. So our podcast has about 250 episodes, covering anything from legal issues to promotion to whatever the topic you might think of. We've probably got an episode about it. And the blog. So yeah, make sure that you read.
Just a quick question. In
Yeah.
terms of like time frame from, you know, the release, the pre-release, the actual release, and then the post-release part of the schedule.
Yeah.
With the attention spans being so short and plans needing to be really locked down so that you can make the most of the narrow window, what sort of time frame do you recommend? Because most artists, they'll come up with an idea, a concept, and develop that, and then
Yeah.
into like a formal release of band line.
Yeah.
What sort of time frame do you recommend?
I'd say, in terms of the creation process, you as an artist need to do what you feel is right. You're the creative mind. I don't have that. I have the business structure mind. So that takes however long you need it to take. I normally say to artists, if you can give us at least 5 to 6 weeks, that allows for a lot of time, that allows a lot of conversation to happen. Nobody has to stress.